where do you see maybe the next generation coming up? And what do you think their expectations are for hunting? And how do we get more people interested in the hunting tradition?
I think a big one for that is exposing people to eating wild game. I think if you are a hunter, sharing that bounty with people who haven't hunted before is an incredibly eye-opening experience. I think, there's people like to throw words around these days of, natural, sustainable, organic. Well, like we were talking about earlier, wild game meat, it doesn't get more natural, sustainable, and organic than that. And I think having somebody come over for a nice dinner that's prepared well, that the game was taken care of well, and giving them a very positive experience can create an absolute shift in their mindset, and they maybe didn't even ever consider hunting before, but something like that can make that shift.
All right, now Kailey got to ask her hunting question. I'm gonna go optics and get spicy with some optic questions. All right, first or second focal plane?
Oh, you can't keep hitting me with these questions where it depends. Okay. If I am using a optic that I intend to use for long range shooting, okay, excuse me. I'm gonna start with hunting. That's why I like that 3-15 with a second focal plane reticle, because I use that optic sometimes in extremely close quarter scenarios, and I also use it for longer range scenarios as well. If I'm going to be target shooting, just long range shooting, and I am going to be above that top end of 15, 100% first focal plane. First focal plane. Yeah. It really does depend for me, but I do like having the ability to have like my optic on the low end of its magnification range in close quarters, like dark timber scenarios, and potentially maybe not have to remember to engage my illumination to be able to see that reticle and have it stand off in those types of situations. But no question, long range shooting, wind calls, things like that, first focal plane is going to shine there.
I'm with him on that. Like, yeah, first focal plane for long range and mill is the only way to go for long range. And if you say MOA and second focal plane, you're just plain wrong. And I will fight you.
The way I look at it, with the top end of, let's say, 15, if I do want to shoot off my reticle, or maybe I want to measure something with my reticle, I can be comfortable at that range, cranking it to 15 to know that my subtensions are accurate now, but I'm not too zoomed in at the same time.
Yeah, I learned all my long range shooting on a mill scope, and then I went and had an MOA scope the last time I went out, and I hated it, and I wanted to throw the whole thing out. It's just, when you learn mills, it's just so much easier to do the calculations and get everything going.
I've never been accused of being a math magician, and mills just seems easier for me in that regard.
Well, it was even easier when we had the Strylock app, but we don't have that anymore. I really wanted to ask you, I guess this isn't really spicy, but I wanted to kind of touch into it. You guys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys got the contract for the military for the new scope. What was that like from a company perspective to get such a large contract?
It was a really big deal. I mean, we did a podcast on it with Alexander, who is here at Vortex, and he's part of the team that has been working on that project and is still working on that project. Truly a David versus Goliath story. I mean, the team who came up with the XM157, truly so talented, so smart. They came up with technologies and features that just didn't exist before, and now they do. And the scope itself, our goal with that was there was a need for it. We are passionate about military and law enforcement here. These guys saw a path to where they thought that they could fulfill that need, and the ability for Vortex to make our warfighters more effective, and more lethal, and also safer. I mean, that's another one of our core values is supporting the military. So having that project coming to fruition, being awarded that agreement for the to be able to provide the fire control was just incredibly. It was a big deal for us, and I think it'll be a big deal for the military as well.
Yeah, the other question I wanted to ask you is, I was watching TV with my wife the other week, and Vortex got called out by name on a major TV network for a show. What's it like to see something like that happen? If you haven't seen it, I can tell you where it was afterwards. But what's it like to see your name called out either on major TV networks or in movies or anything like that?
It's wild, man, and it's a huge compliment, and it kind of fuels your fire around here. I remember a time when I got to Vortex where, I went to, it would have been, I guess it would have been the NRA show when it, like 2 months after I got here, Paul Neese and I drove down to Arizona in a van with a trade show booth that Sam, one of the owners / founders of Vortex, had built. And, and for several days in a row, we answered the question, who's Vortex? What do you do? And to see it go from that to essentially, at least in the optics space, being somewhat of a household name is, it's incredible. I feel like, everybody just had their head down grinding, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, whoa, we've actually come a pretty long way. This is pretty cool.
Now I have a spicy follow-up question. What is your reaction when you see your product put on backwards?
We want to be able to help those people. It's an honest mistake. You know what? I'd say it happens more than you think, and I'd say the LPVO is definitely the one that happens to the most. I think just the shape of that optic, for some folks, it's not as intuitive to, at least maybe not mounting wise, but looking through wise. Oftentimes those will get picked up. You're like, oh yeah, and the person will be like, oh yeah, that looks really clear. And I'm like, well, if you like it that way, you're going to love it when you turn it around.